Hey everyone, welcome to day two, or day four. Gosh, time is a construct of human mind, right? We're on day four of SIPPIO Fleet Week. Today is Friend Day. If you missed anything from the rest of this past week, Monday we had our opening keynote. We were joined by Jeremy Friedberg from Friedberg PC to talk about his experience moving from a legacy phone system to Microsoft Teams. We had a great discussion with Zayas Caravala of ZK Research and Taimur Hussain from Microsoft talking about the channel partner opportunity and the service providers, list of ducks to get in a row as they enter this marketplace to accelerate into growth. We've had great sessions since. We've had customer-facing sessions on the value of moving to modern communications with Teams or Zoom. We had an analyst session on Tuesday. I was joined by my colleague George Tarzi to talk about what's coming to the SIPPIO platform, our innovation roadmap. That was really exciting. If you missed it, make sure you watch the on-demand replay because we've got some really cool stuff coming with Gen AI in the platform to make it even easier to quote and to use our service. And then yesterday was Partner Day. So we had a session in the morning for our service provider partners to better understand how you augment and enhance your existing infrastructure investments, how you can leverage the power of automation to increase your margins and to accelerate and get an unfair share of your of this growth in this marketplace. And then in the afternoon, we had a session for our reseller partners, channel partners, trusted advisors to help you start to see Teams as the opportunity, not an obstacle. Instead of trying to sell a UCaaS offering that's like trying to smack a square peg through a round hole to a customer that's already using Teams, positioning accretive solutions, additive solutions to the existing platform is a much easier sale. And we went through the whole toolkit of calling and beyond, which then leads me to today. So today is our Friend Day. We're doing calling and beyond today. We just finished the Tango Network session talking about mobility. And this session, I'm welcoming our friends from Tollring to join us to talk about SIPPIO reporting, SIPPIO recording, and SIPPIO recording plus AI. These are all powered by their Analytics 365 platform, and they're a part of the SIPPIO CX family. Now, SIPPIO CX is our overreaching strategy for customer engagement inside of Teams. And we cover both sides of the spectrum. On the right-hand side, you're going to hear from Solgari later on. For those customers that have a customer service organization, they've got tushes and cushes that do nothing but talk to customers day in, day out across the surface area that engagements happen on. But on the other side of the spectrum, there are a lot of organizations that have contact center like needs, but they don't need a contact center. It's overkill, both in cost and functionality. They're using call queues that are built into Teams that do a really good job of delivering incoming calls to a select group of people whose day job may not necessarily be sitting at a desk just answering calls, but it may be a part of their function. Let's think about a help desk, for example. So Teams will deliver those calls to those users at no cost, by the way. There's no additional cost to use call queues. But one of the gaps for those organizations has been, how do I know how many calls are coming in? How do I understand, who's answering those calls? How do I look at live statistics to make sure that I've got enough people available to take phone calls? How long's my longest call been waiting? And then how do you post the call, look at the recordings and, listen to all of the recordings? A human can't do it. So that's where AI comes in to surface the ones that matter for quality assurance, for employee appreciation, for employee training. So this is why we've added our friends from Tollring to the SIPPIO CX family, because we see potential for a lot of organizations who need that contact center feature set without the need to go to a full-blown contact center with the cost and complexities that sometimes can come from that. So what I'd like to do is welcome my friend Ian from Tollring to share with us the Analytics 365 story, the underpinning of SIPPIO reporting, SIPPIO recording, and SIPPIO recording plus AI. So Ian, I think you just were able to take control of the screen. Let me put you in the spotlight so this way everybody can see you. And one bit of housekeeping before Ian takes control. as we're going through today's session, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat as we go through. We'll collect some of the questions, and as time permits, at the end of the session, we will ask them live. If we don't get to your question live, we will follow up with you post-session to make sure that you get your answers. So feel free to use that chat, put those questions in, we'll monitor it. Ian, I'm going to step off stage. Stage is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. In this session, we're going to be talking about both call analytics and recording and that AI overlay that Steve talked about. In terms of the running order, I'm going to start by talking about why organizations buy analytics, why they buy recording. Then we're going to spend a bit of time looking at why we think Analytics 365 is the right choice. And then having done that, we're going to do a bit of a product overview on call analytics and recording by running through a few use cases. Okay, so first of all, then why analytics? Well, Steve did a pretty good job of explaining this, but for me, it's a bit like, you know, if you're running a customer-facing team and you don't have analytics, it's a bit like trying to drive a car without a dashboard. Yes, it's possible, but you wouldn't know whether you were speeding, you wouldn't know if you needed to fill up with gas, you wouldn't know if there was a fault of some kind. So it's really quite an essential application if you're running a customer-facing team. And we break it down into three elements, really. So the first element is about understanding your customers, so a bit of an external perspective. So here we will be worrying about, well, when are they calling? How long will they wait to be answered? And are we available to them when they need us? The next element of it is about more of an internal perspective. So, and it's really about driving performance or productivity. So here we might be worrying about, are we spending the right amount of time on calls? Are we correctly resourced? Is the workload balanced across individuals, but also across teams? And then who are our best performers? What are their communication habits, and how can we replicate that across all of our users to improve the service we deliver? So then we want to take that external perspective and the internal perspective and kind of pull that together with some targets to get a measure of service level. So in this case, we're worrying about, what level of service are we delivering? Are we missing calls? If we do miss calls, are we calling them back? And does the service level dip below expectation at certain times? And what do we need to do to address that? So that's kind of the left-hand side. Just before we flip to the right-hand side, I think over the last decade or so, the market's changed a little bit. So as more and more business goes online, what a lot of organizations suffer is a situation where they find it harder to build relationships. So if you're the kind of organization that perhaps only speaks to your customer, gets the opportunity to speak to your customer, once or twice a year, then the quality of that interaction is really important, because it's likely you'll be judged not only on the quantitative measurements of, how long were you in the queue, how long were you ringing for, how long were you on the call, but also what happened in that call. And that's really where the recording comes in. So on the recording side, again, there are three elements to talk about. The first one is really about managing risk. So the first element of that is about compliance. When we talk about compliance, often we'll think about certain industry sectors, financial services, insurance, maybe healthcare. But actually, if you think about it, pretty much all industry sectors and all businesses have an element of compliance to manage. They'll worry about adherence to policy, how calls are structured. They'll worry about, what their customer-facing staff are saying in terms of, human rights, corruption, fraud, all of those kind of things that might occur, and recording the calls can help with all of that. The next element in the risk category, if you like, is, and it applies more to industries that are perhaps have complex conversations on the phone. So I'm thinking here of legal, maybe construction, high tech, that kind of thing, or if they're if they're conversations of very high importance or consequence, then again you'll probably want to record those calls so that you've got a record of that interaction, and so that you can go back to that interaction, check on the detail, and avoid what could be a very costly mistake. And then if we are recording calls, either for compliance reasons or for reasons of customer experience, we've got a responsibility to protect customer privacy and security. So here I'm thinking about, a customer that might not give you permission to process their data. In that case, you might want to be able to delete all of the recordings you currently have for them, but also exclude their caller IDs from the recording policy. And then if we're taking card payments over the phone, we've got a responsibility under PCI DSS to not store that sensitive card data. And again, we'll need a mechanism to manage that. Moving on to customer experience. So this is really about, managing the quality of interaction. The first challenge that customer-facing teams often face is around getting new starters up to speed faster. So, you can have them listening to live calls, but the problem with that is they might not always be listening to best practice. And perhaps more importantly, they might not get exposed to all of the call scenarios, particularly those call scenarios that are maybe rarely occurring, but extremely challenging, where the skill of your customer facing team is absolutely key. So it's much better to have a mechanism by which you can flag best practice recordings and then export those into a training playlist. And then when we talk about the live environment, if you like, we might be concerned about delivering a consistent level of service. So that's all about developing call tactics, about working out the best way to answer different call scenarios, and then sharing that practice for reasons of improving service, but also to reduce stress across a customer-facing team, which can help us retain our staff. The final piece I want to quickly talk about is dispute resolution. So this has become more of a thing probably in the last decade, because of course, if you get negative feedback online, it can be nearly impossible, sometimes impossible to erase. So it's really important to quickly understand who said what and deal with these complaints professionally. One final thing before we move off this slide: in certain industry sectors that tend to have highly charged conversations, it can sometimes be more about protecting the members of your own staff than the customer service. And I'm thinking here at perhaps certain parts of the healthcare, maybe social housing, those kinds of sectors. Okay, so and finally, of course, this dispute resolution piece feeds back into managing risk, as for a lot of businesses, reputation is a big part of managing risk. Okay, so what's available to you is two products, effectively two cloud-based applications: Call Analytics and AI-powered recording. Call Analytics, as we said earlier, all about understanding your customers, driving performance and managing service levels. And Call Recording, all about managing risk, managing the quality of conversations, and speeding up dispute resolution. Okay, so why do we think you should choose Analytics 365 from SIPPIO? So first of all, of course, it's a cloud-based application, or two cloud-based applications, effectively, one for analytics, one for recording. You can buy them separately, and they're available in the SIPPIO marketplace. Secondly, Analytics 365 synchronizes with the customer's Microsoft 365 environment to simplify deployment and also the ongoing administration. So it understands the synchronization process, means that it understands the users, it understands the organizational hierarchy, it understands all of the Microsoft groups. All of that is shared, synchronized, and then you can use that, for example, to define, access rights and permissions and all of those kinds of things. So really slick to deploy. The second piece has to do with ease of use. So when it comes to ease of use, it's these are relatively new products with an all new user interface. A lot of time and effort has been put into making sure that they're really slick. So you set your filters. The filters are persistent, and then you can move around the products, selecting KPIs and dashboard views and so on, till you find the insight that you need. And as you can see here, the structure of the user interfaces for the call analytics and recording is very simple. So, minimal training requirements, if any. And once you know one product and can drive one product, you can effectively drive the other. In terms of licensing, we license on the basis of monitored users. So in terms of access to the analytics, there's no charge for that. That's down to the administrator deciding who they want to enable and then defining their permissions and the scope of their access so that they get exactly the access they need. You can apply the licenses on any basis you like. You can mix and match them. So, it gives you the opportunity to for these products to effectively evolve with your business needs. Okay, moving on to call analytics. Let's take a look at the product. So we're going to start with something relatively simple. We're going to look at managing unreturned missed calls. So first of all, as you can see here, we've got this filter selection piece. So we can set our filters by date and time. We can select them by user group, by call queues, by incoming numbers, and by call types. One really good thing here is that we can save these filter configurations. So I don't know, for example, if you're the manager of two service desks, you might have a filter set up for service desk 1, a filter set up for service desk 2, and then another one that covered both of them together. Save those, give them a name, call them back up. Really easy to set your filters. The next thing we see on the left-hand side is a number of little drop-down windows which present the various KPIs that you can choose. And because this time we're interested in missed calls, we're going to select that bottom one, which is missed calls. That opens up a little window, presents some KPIs to us, and unsurprisingly, we are going to select the unreturned KPI. That then displays to us a list of unreturned missed calls, the definition of which is they are abandoned or missed calls, minus the calls that have been returned by the caller. That means the caller's called back in and they've been answered, so we're going to assume that they got the answer they needed in the end, minus calls returned by an agent. So this is a dynamic list, changing all the time as we miss calls and we return calls. And we can share this list if we wish. So imagine we want to get one of our users focused on following up on these missed calls. Then we can initiate a share. We can put in one or more email addresses and we can share the dashboard. And when we share this dashboard, it remains dynamic. So on that user's desktop, it will change as they return calls and more calls are missed and whatever. Alternatively, we could set up a schedule. So imagine, for instance, we'd got some kind of shift pattern. There was a shift change at, say, 12 o'clock. Then we could schedule this report or this dashboard to be shared at 12 o'clock every day, so that when the new shift comes in, they can deal with these missed calls. Right then, another example. So say we were interested in user performance. So this time, yet again, we're going to set up our filters. This time we're going to look at the data for today. We're interested in all of the calls. However, this time in that top right-hand corner, we're going to select a user view. And what this gives us is a visual indication in the form of a graph of all our users and what calls they've been taking today, and then below it, you'll see a table. The table provides the details, so we can click on the column titles and sort the table if that's what we want to do. Or for all of that numeric data that you see in color there, we can click on that numeric data and drill down on the detail. So let's say, for instance, we're interested in Ambrose and we're interested in the calls that he has answered today. He's answered 2 calls. We look at those 2 calls. That's interesting, isn't it? One of those 2 calls has 4 legs in it over on the right-hand side here. So we might want to click on the call legs. We can see the call journey. And then we look at the call journey. We can see it came into an auto attendant. It was directed to the support call center queue. It was answered by Marie. Marie probably didn't know the answer. She was talking to the caller for about a minute, and then it was transferred to Ambrose. Ambrose spent 5 minutes on the call. So really easy to get a feel for what's going on with any particular call scenario. Just before we leave this, I just quickly want to talk about the live capability. So over on the left-hand side again, we can pull up a view of a summary of live status. And we're in pretty good shape, as you can see there, because we've got 8 calls on the go at the moment, and 18 agents or users available to answer calls. So if we want to know who's in a call, we can click on in a call, and we can very quickly see who is currently on a call. That's all live data. So that's really useful if we're trying to manage our customer-facing team in the moment, on the fly. Right, okay, so one last thing before moving on from call analytics, I just want to talk quickly about wallboards. So we've set this product up, if you like, to manage hybrid working. So in the case of wallboards, we can create a wallboard, we select tiles, you apply filters to the tiles, and then you publish and share the wallboard. So if you publish it, we publish it to a URL, we can display it on a big screen in the office, and then we can also share it. So if you've got a few of our staff working at home, they can get exactly the same view at home. So what we're seeing here is the top row is the call queues. So we can see we've got 2 sales desk queues, 2 service desk queues. This is a live view. This will be changing all of the time as the queues update. Similarly for user statement, again, it's a live view. We can see we've got 8 agents available, 7 in a call at the moment. And then we've got 2, and then I've set this one up. So we've got 2 rows of historical data. So one that gives us a summary of the calls for today, and one that gives us some useful stats around average talk time, grade of service, when was our busy hour, all of that kind of thing. Okay, moving on to the recording product now. So let's start with something simple. We want to filter, listen, and share. So the filter element, again, is very similar. We can do that by date and time, call directions and users and participants and all of those good things. And then we've got, just like the call analytics product, we've got a KPI piece on the left-hand side. This time we're going to select totals. So this gives us a list of all of our call recordings for the filter selection. There are 2 ways of now playing a recording. The first one is to do a quick play from the home screen. Looks like this. You get a visual indication of the recording and some control buttons. Or if you want to do something a little bit more sophisticated, then you open the call details page. So what we see here across the top is the call details. Again, we see the audio wave. And then down the left-hand side there, you can see we've currently selected comments. I've made a comment. I've selected a zone on the recording. I've made a comment and I've tagged Marcus. So as a result of tagging Marcus, he'll get a notification and a link to this recording so that he can hear the part of the conversation that matters, and also look at the comment I've made. So this is a really good way of collaborating with people in your team. Working down the left-hand side, you can see we can evaluate a call, we can add call outcomes and reason codes. We can very quickly find recordings that are associated with this recording. So recordings with the same participant. And then finally, there's a playback audit where we can see who's played the call, who's played this recording, who shared this recording, all of those kinds of things. Right, so let's say we want to share, so we can securely share these recordings. They remain in an encrypted format within the A365 Analytics 365 environment, and we can share the recording either just as a audio file, or we can share it with chosen pieces of metadata if we wish. One final piece on this slide. Up at the top there, we've got an option to put a recording on legal hold. That means that it's retained beyond its storage period. And if we have the right permissions enabled, we can delete it, we can share it, or we can download it. Right, okay, so moving on to recording with AI analytics. And as Steve said earlier on, the real value add here is there's no way you could ever evaluate every single call into your organization. But with AI analytics, you can. So let's take a look at where this plays out. So if we look on the left-hand side again, now we've got some information that gives us an indication of sentiment rating. So we can see how many positive, neutral, and negative sentiments we've got. We can also get an indication of how many topic matches have occurred. So in the AI package, it comes with predefined topics, and those predefined topics are escalation and complaints. They are abusive language and complementary language. So within each of those categories, there are a number of keywords and phrases that will spot those things occurring in the conversations. So in this case, you can see that we've got 18 matches against escalation and complaint. So we might want to have a little look at that, see what's going on. So there are my 18 calls. Now I'm opening up one of those calls, and what we can see is that we've got an indication of the topic match at the top. Alongside the audio wave, we've got an indication of the participant. If there are any exact matches, we've got those. And also we've got an indication of sentiment. So the indication of sentiment can be really useful, because imagine at the end of the day, you're the manager of a customer facing team. You just want to check what calls have occurred with a negative sentiment. There could be say 20 or 30 of those. If you had to listen to every one of those end to end, it would be very time consuming. But what you can do here is, open the recording and very quickly get an impression of what's happening. So this one's a bit mixed all the way through. But if you had one where the customer started off unhappy and then the call was completed and the customer was happy, you'd see that in the visual representation, and you might make a decision. You don't need to listen to that call. And then the other element I want to point out here is the transcription. So in the transcription, if you play the call, it will also step through the transcription. Again, you can see the sentiment, you can see the participant, and depending on your permissions, you could cut and paste this transcription into another application if you wished. Moving beyond those defined topics, just to make it clear, we do have we can deliver custom topics and keywords. You can build your own. That's a conversation to be had with SIPPIO if you want to do that. Okay, so just like the call analytics, we can also start to look at performance and trends. So a few quick examples here. We've selected a dashboard view for users. We could select a dashboard view by sentiment. We could select a dashboard view by time if we wanted to look at trends. So in this case, we're looking at it by day of week. Just to finish off, I mentioned earlier on that we wanted to get to a point where the whole was worth more than the sum of the parts. So here's an example of one thing we can do now, where if you deploy both products, you get a little lift. So if you deploy call analytics and recording together, this is a view of the call analytics, and you can see now you have a play icon. So you can play recordings from call analytics. And even if you open up the call legs, you'll see you can do the same in the call journey window. So this is really useful if, say, you're investigating a customer complaint, because you can go into call analytics, you can go, right, how many times has this caller called? How long did they wait? Who answered the call? Home in on on a particular conversation that might be of concern. And when you get to that point, you can play the recording. So that's, I hope, has given you a little taster of what's available and how it complements the SIPPIO voice proposition with Microsoft Teams. So thank you for your time. I'm handing over to Steve again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. I think this is a really powerful tool for our, here, let me take back control really quick so I can get everybody all on the same page. And let me put myself in the spotlight. So as we've been going through the session, there have been a few questions that have come into the Q&A panel. I've been kind of watching and answering as we've gone. But I think a couple of these could potentially be really good questions to bring live to everyone. So let me start here. You may have answered this as the presentation went on. Does SIPPIO reporting powered by Analytics 365 support cradle to grave reporting?
Yeah, so it's that's the call journey piece. The call journey piece. So wherever you see a call record, if we can call it that, it's really as a record on the right hand side of the screen. It's really a call leg, and then if you click on the call legs icon, it will show you all of the legs in that call journey. So you'll see it when it arrived, how it was answered, and it might have, however many legs it's got. And in there, of course, it'll give you some extra information, like so for example, the wait time isn't really based on a single leg. It's based on the whole call journey. So you get a complete cradle to grave view of what's happened.
So let me just look through here. I think you answered this one already, but how does the AI-powered recording feature help surface critical insights from call recordings?
Yeah, so I think there's two aspects to that. First of all, the AI is applied across every single recording equally. So the first element of it is highlighting the calls that matter from the thousands of calls that you have. And then the second element of it is when you identify a call, you open that call, it will identify the critical part of the conversation, either through a topic match or through sentiment, depending on what your priority is.
I agree. Let's see. I think this is more of a question of what kind of KPIs can you manage, but what is the live capability of Analytics 365 provide for real-time management of customer-facing teams? So I think they're asking what KPIs can you see, what kind of data can you see on a real-time dashboard?
So at the moment, the live elements, if you like, are the user status and the way it presents user status, and the call queues. So between those two, you can get a good, in the moment view of what's happening and make some on-the-fly decisions about how to manage that. And one of the upsides of Microsoft Teams is that you get a fantastic view of people's user status, much more granularity than you probably get in a regular call center environment. So, I mean, that helps you to make some decisions about, who could become available, for instance, who to bring online.
Okay. And I agree. The real-time dashboards, those are super useful for, keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your contact center. This question came up, and honestly, I think I could use just the clarification. Where are the recordings stored with
Yes.
SIPPIO Recordings plus AI, and what's the retention period?
Yeah, good question. So, taking the location first. So we have, so the cloud environment is, as you'd expect, Microsoft Azure geo redundant, and the recording application is deployed in the US, in Europe, and in Australia by default. There is a mechanism by which you can direct calls to your own location if you wish. So that's a way of dealing with any compliance requirements to do with where your data's stored. You can do that if you wish. In terms of choice around retention periods, the Essentials license effectively presents options for 90 days, 1 year, and 7 year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a question here. I can answer this one on price.
Okay.
So the pricing for the 3 offers. So we offer 3 versions of this offering. We've got SIPPIO reporting, which is by Analytics 365. They're all by Analytics 365. So SIPPIO reporting, the MSRP is $2.30 per seat, and that is for anything that's being monitored. So you'll need a license for your call queue, and you'll need a license for every user that's a member of those queues. Very, very cost effective. I mean, again, when you think about having that kind of a capability in a contact center as a service offer, you're looking at $75 to $150 per agent. So $2 and I believe it's $2.30 or $2.40. We'll have to check. $2 and change per seat. It's a bargain. You're going to get a heck of a lot more value out of it than what you spend. Call recording, just the basic call recording with 90 days of retention is $7 per seat. You need that for each user that's being recorded. It's full compliance recording in out. And then recording plus AI retails at $32 per seat. And actually, there's a question in here. Again, I don't think you answered it, but just in case, recordings plus AI PCI compliant, correct?
Yes, I didn't answer that actually. That's a good point. So there are 2 options in terms of managing PCI compliance. The first one, which you would take if you were running the plain cost-effective recording option, is there's a Teams app that you can download, and that gives you control over pause, resume, and discard. So that's the first option. The second option is super clever. So if you have the AI overlay, then the AI will recognize the sensitive card data and automatically redact it. So that's really neat compared with the solution that some of you are probably aware of, where you are identifying the URLs of payment service providers and using that as a mechanism for doing auto stop and start, which can be a bit complex and difficult at times. So yeah, those are the 2 choices.
That's great. So there's a few more questions in here. We will get back to you directly post-session. Ian, I want to thank you for attending and sharing with us the Analytics 365 platform. And it really kind of, I think, illustrates why we at SIPPIO chose Tollring and the Analytics 365 platform to be a part of our SIPPIO CX portfolio to assist customers who don't need a full-blown contact center, but to help them really gain those actionable insights, ensure compliance, and to maintain and enhance quality by using these services with their built-in Microsoft Teams calls queues. So Ian, again, thank you for joining us here on Fleet Week.
A pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so let me just kind of quickly let you know what else is coming. So today, at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by our friends from Solgari. So this session was designed to talk about the organizations that don't need to have a full contact center because they don't have, tushes and cushes that are doing nothing but talking to customers or, employees. Solgari is for the opposite end of that spectrum. So organizations that do have a customer service organization where they're engaging with customers across a wider array of channels, and we want to route calls or interactions through a common routing engine using AI to assist the agents and to empower any employee in an organization to be a customer service champion. Solgari is the solution. It's a part of the SIPPIO CX portfolio. So they're going to be coming up at the top of the hour. Ernie LaBarba from that organization is going to be joining us. So make sure you tune in for that. And then later on this afternoon, we're also going to have a session with our friends from Clerk Chat to talk about messaging, text messaging, WhatsApp for business, Apple Messages for business, and how they're enabling a Teams native experience for those channels using AI on those channels so you can create bots to auto respond for both personal inboxes as well as shared inboxes that are monitored by multiple people. Then tomorrow we've got a partner exclusive session where I'll be joined by SIPPIO Chief Operating Officer and General Manager Don Rielder to give partners the exclusive overview and some sales positioning ideas around SIPPIO Bridge, the product that we announced on Monday that enables customers in the upper mid-market and enterprise space to bridge their present with their future. Those customers that have that legacy infrastructure that they can't quite move off of yet, but also are using Teams or Zoom that want to basically get more capabilities without having to full flash cut to those platforms. SIPPIO Bridge is the answer. So make sure you tune in for that session Friday morning. And Friday afternoon, we're just going to have a quick look back on the week as the proverbial ships head out of the port and back out to sea, so to speak. If you haven't registered for any of the other sessions, today's or tomorrow's, just go to sippio.io/fleetweek and you can register to get a meeting invite for the rest of the sessions that are on the calendar. Again, this has been the SIPPIO CX, SIPPIO reporting, SIPPIO recording, and SIPPIO recording plus AI breakout session. All these services are powered by Analytics 365 and our friends from Tollring. So thank you for attending Fleet Week. Thank you for attending this session. And if you did submit a question in the panel, we will reach out to you directly post-session to follow up. Thanks, everybody.